Hi, and thanks for dropping by. In an earlier video, my bookshelf tour, I actually pointed to some books on the shelf and I said, Empyrean by Stephen Lawhead Christian. This is one of the best. I reckon this is one of the best sci-fi Christian books series out. Okay, and then what else have we got? And soon after that, I had a question. I was asked a question, and the question was, what's the difference between Christian science fiction and regular science fiction? Well, I thought I could answer that until I actually tried to. Up until then, I could point to a book and say, that's a Christian book, or that's a Christian book. And no, it was just, how did I know? It was just a gut feeling. And when I had to put it into words, I was actually lost for words. My original answer would have been Christian science fiction, or any other form of Christian fiction, is Christian fiction because it's written by a Christian. I sound like Dr. Seuss, don't I? It's not the whole story, because I know of Christian novels, Christian fiction, which has been written by ghostwriters, and these ghostwriters aren't Christian, but in order to make the book appeal to a Christian audience, they have written the story from a different perspective. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. The difference between Christian science fiction and regular science fiction, or any Christian fiction and regular fiction, is that they come at the story from a different perspective. Now, if you want to get philosophical, and I like a bit of philosophy, the difference is a worldview. What is a worldview, you might ask? Well, a worldview is like a set of lenses in which you view the world around you, and it helps you make sense of your experience and helps you interpret life in a particular way. Now, some of you may say, well, I haven't heard of a worldview before, so I don't think I have one. Well, according to philosophers, we all do, because it affects how you think, how you feel, and what you do from day to day. To understand your worldview, think about how you answer the big questions in life, and the answers to these big questions are the set of lenses with which you interpret life through. So these questions are: does God exist? How did everything begin? Who am I? Why am I here? And what happens after I die? So the difference between Christian science fiction and regular science fiction would be how these questions are answered, which would then dictate the way the story is told. So, for example, the first question, does God exist? Regular science fiction would say, or answer this question by saying no, or maybe, but it doesn't affect our story unless God is an advanced alien, but then that means that God isn't really God, the way we perceive God. Christian science fiction would answer this question and say, yes, the biblical God exists, and therefore there are certain truths or spiritual laws which are both literally and figuratively universal, or present throughout the universe, which is not just specific to a certain culture here on Earth. Take the second question, how did everything begin? Well, regular science fiction would answer that question by saying the Big Bang, and then life began via evolution. Having this worldview allows science fiction stories to have a universe populated with millions of intelligent, sentient alien beings, which we can then interact with. Think of Star Wars or Star Trek. But Christian science fiction may answer this question differently, saying God made everything through speaking. He made humanity in his own image. And this worldview may allow a universe where, which is young, a universe where humans are significant and not just one in a million species that bootstrap themselves into sentience. Or it may have a universe that's filled with life, think space birds, space dinosaurs, space horses. So it may have a universe which is filled with life, but may not allow for any other intelligent species other than humans. Now, this is a generalization, however, guess, because on both sides there's such a variety of interpretation on the answers to those questions. For example, C.S. Lewis's Cosmic Trilogy, which I would consider Christian science fiction, he has other sentient species other than humans. In Stephen Lawhead's The Dream Thief, another book I would say is Christian science fiction, we meet a Martian, the last living member of his species, living high in the Himalayan mountains after seeking refuge from a dying Mars. Then, on the other hand, Isaac Asimov, who writes regular science fiction, he created his universe, which includes the Foundation and the Robot series, with human beings being the only sentient, intelligent creatures in the universe. He did this for practical reasons, not religious reasons, so it can go both ways. Okay. So, I'm not sure if I cleared things up, because it's so nuanced. But let's try to boil things down. Boil this down to a simple statement that we can finish on. What's the difference between Christian science fiction and regular science fiction? Well, I'd say now, the difference is that one story is written in a universe in which God exists, and the other story is written in a universe which God does not exist. And because of that assumption, the writers come at the stories from different perspectives in life. So we see Lewis, Lawhead, Lengel, and Tolkien all set their stories in a universe in which a godlike being very similar to the biblical God exists. Weir, Wyndham, Wells, Robinson, Rand, and Reynolds all set their stories in a universe in which no God exists. So there's so many factors to consider, and I hope I was able to answer this one to your satisfaction. If not, feel free to ask me further questions over on my Facebook page, The Bistro Math. The links are in the info box if you want to talk about this further. And if you know me personally, I'm quite happy to have a chat about this over coffee. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Don't forget, leave a like, share it with your friends, and don't forget to read more and think more with your favourite beverage. See ya.